more than 4,000 years ago, long before the rise of Rome, long before classical Greece, and centuries before the first Chinese empires, a vast civilization quietly flourished across the plains and rivers of South Asia. Today we call it the Indus Valley Civilization. It is also known as the Harappan Civilization, named after one of its first discovered cities. At its height, this civilization covered more land than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. Yet for thousands of years, it remained almost completely forgotten. The Indus Valley Civilization emerged around the year 2600 BCE. It developed along the Indus River and its many tributaries in what is now modern-day Pakistan and northwest India. Rivers shaped everything. They provided water, fertile soil, and reliable routes for movement and trade. Seasonal flooding renewed the land, allowing agriculture to support large urban populations. This was not a small or scattered society. It was urban, planned, organized. Archaeologists have uncovered hundreds of Indus Valley sites. Some were small villages, others were large cities that housed tens of thousands of people. Among the most famous are Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. These cities were not accidental. They were carefully designed. Streets ran in straight lines, intersecting at right angles. Homes were built with standardized bricks, fired for strength and durability. The same brick proportions appear across sites hundreds of miles apart. This suggests shared knowledge, shared standards, and coordination on a massive scale. Homes varied in size, but even modest houses often had multiple rooms, courtyards, and access to clean water. Many homes were connected to wells or drainage channels. Wastewater flowed through covered drains beneath the streets. This sanitation system was far more advanced than those of many civilizations that came thousands of years later. Cleanliness mattered. Water management mattered. Order mattered. Yet what is most striking is what we do not find. There are no giant palaces, no towering statues of kings, no royal tombs filled with treasure, no murals celebrating conquest or war, no carvings of rulers standing over defeated enemies. Instead, the archaeological record is quiet, practical, focused on daily life. This absence raises profound questions. Who ruled the Indus Valley Civilization? How were decisions made? How was such order maintained without visible displays of power? Some scholars believe that leadership existed, but was deliberately understated. Others suggest that power was decentralized, shared among councils or local authorities. There is no clear evidence of a single ruling dynasty, no known list of kings, no monuments proclaiming dominance. What we do see is remarkable consistency. Cities separated by great distances followed similar layouts, used similar tools, built with the same measurements. This implies cooperation, communication, and shared values. The economy of the Indus Valley was diverse and stable. Farmers cultivated wheat, barley, peas, and possibly rice. They raised cattle, sheep, and goats. Granaries stored surplus grain, ensuring food security. Trade connected cities internally and linked them to distant regions. Indus seals have been found. As far away as Mesopotamia, these seals often depict animals and symbols carved with care. They were likely used in trade, perhaps to mark goods or ownership. The presence of these seals abroad suggests peaceful exchange, not military expansion. Art from the Indus Valley is subtle and restrained. Small figurines depict animals, musicians, and everyday human forms. There are no heroic battle scenes, no glorification of violence. The imagery reflects calm observation, not domination. Weapons do exist, but they are rare. And when found, they appear more suited for hunting or personal defense than organized warfare. There are few signs of large-scale fortifications. Walls exist in some cities, but they may have been used to control flooding rather than repel enemies. All of this leads many historians to describe the Indus Valley Civilization as one of the most peaceful, large societies in ancient history. This does not mean there was no conflict at all, but conflict does not appear to have defined the culture. One of the greatest mysteries of the Indus Valley is its writing system. Short inscriptions appear on seals, pottery, and tools. The symbols are consistent, carefully arranged, and widely used. Yet to this day, the script remains undeciphered. Because we cannot read their writing, we must rely on archaeology alone to understand their world. There are no recorded myths, no written laws, no preserved names of leaders. Their voices remain silent, and yet their cities speak. As we continue, we will explore daily life, religious beliefs, social organization, and the many theories behind the civilization's slow disappearance, not through myth, but through evidence and quiet observation. Life in the Indus Valley Civilization followed gentle and predictable rhythms. The rising and falling of rivers, the changing of seasons, and the steady routines of work shaped everyday existence. This regularity may be one of the reasons the civilization remained stable for so many centuries. Most people lived ordinary lives. They were farmers, craftsmen, traders, and laborers. They woke with the sun, worked through the daylight hours, and rested as night fell. Their world was structured, but not harsh. Agriculture formed the foundation of Indus society. Fields surrounded the cities and smaller settlements. Farmers used simple tools, but practiced careful planning. They timed planting to seasonal rains and river floods. Surplus crops were stored, protecting communities from famine. Food security allowed cities to grow without constant fear of hunger. Livestock played an important role. Cattle were especially valued, used for farming and transport. Sheep and goats provided meat, milk, and wool. Animals appear frequently in Indus art and seals, often depicted calmly, without signs of aggression. This suggests a relationship based on utility and respect, rather than domination. Craftsmanship in the Indus Valley was highly developed. Pottery was produced in standardized shapes and sizes. Beads made from carnelian, lapis lazuli, and shell were crafted with remarkable precision. Some beads required heating, cutting, and drilling techniques that show advanced knowledge of materials. These objects were not only functional, they were beautiful. Workshops have been found within cities. They were organized, but not separated into distant industrial zones. Craftsmen lived among their communities. Production was integrated into daily life. This blending of work and home further suggests a society without rigid class divisions. Trade was extensive. Goods moved between Indus cities by river and land routes. Merchants exchanged grain, pottery, tools, and luxury items. Beyond the Indus region, trade connected this civilization to Mesopotamia, Persia, and coastal regions. Mesopotamian texts refer to a distant land called Meluha, which many scholars believe was the Indus Valley. These trade relationships appear to have been peaceful. There is no evidence of military expeditions to secure foreign markets. Trade seems to have relied on trust, reputation, and mutual benefit. Standardized weights and measures have been found across Indus sites. This consistency made trade fair predictable and efficient. Religion in the Indus Valley remains difficult to define. No large temples have been discovered. No clear priestly class has been identified. Yet certain symbols appear repeatedly. The most famous structure is the Great Bath at Mohenjo-Daro. The Great Bath was a large, carefully constructed pool lined with brick and sealed with bitumen. Steps led down into the water. The structure suggests ritual use. Perhaps it was used for cleansing, ceremony, or communal gatherings. Water, once again, appears central to Indus beliefs. Figurines found across sites depict human and animal forms. Some show seated figures that scholars have compared to later yogic postures. Others depict fertility symbols. These artifacts suggest a belief system connected to nature cycles and balance. There is no evidence of violent gods or divine kings. Religion appears inward, personal, and tied to daily life. Social hierarchy in the Indus Valley was likely present, but subtle. Larger homes exist, indicating wealth differences. But these homes are not extravagant. They do not dominate cityscapes. There is no sharp division between elite and common spaces. This suggests inequality existed, but was restrained. Perhaps most striking is how little evidence exists for slavery or forced labor. Construction was large-scale and well-planned, yet there are no signs of mass graves, chains, or oppressive systems. Labor appears organized, but not brutal. This balance between order and restraint may explain the civilization's longevity. For nearly 700 years, the Indus Valley remained stable. Cities were maintained. Standards were preserved. Life continued without dramatic upheaval. Then, gradually, things began to change. Around 1900 BCE, urban life started to decline. Cities were not destroyed. They were slowly abandoned. Streets filled with silt. Homes were left behind. People moved away. There is no evidence of foreign invasion, no widespread burning, no layers of destruction. Instead, the signs point to environmental change. Rivers shifted course. Some dried up. Others flooded unpredictably. Climate patterns changed. Agriculture became less reliable. Large cities dependent on stable water systems could no longer be sustained. People adapted. They did not panic. They did not fight. They dispersed into smaller settlements. Rural life replaced urban centers. The civilization transformed rather than collapsed. As the great cities of the Indus Valley began to empty, life did not suddenly end. It changed. What followed was not collapse in flames, but a slow and quiet transition. People adjusted to new conditions with patience and resilience. The most widely accepted explanation for the decline of the Indus Valley Civilization is environmental change. Rivers that once flowed reliably shifted their courses. Some channels dried up entirely, others flooded without warning. One of the most important rivers, often identified as the Ghaggar Hakra, appears to have gradually lost its flow. Cities that depended on it could no longer function as before. Climate evidence suggests that monsoon patterns weakened over time. Rainfall became less predictable. Agriculture suffered. Without stable harvests, large urban populations were difficult to support. This did not create instant disaster. It created slow pressure. Rather than struggling to preserve cities at all costs, people moved. They returned to smaller communities. They followed water sources. They adapted their lifestyles to new realities. This response suggests a society capable of flexibility and long-term thinking. Some scholars once proposed that invading groups destroyed the Indus cities. This theory has largely been abandoned. There is no archaeological evidence of widespread violence, no mass graves, no burned layers of destruction, no sudden cultural replacement. Instead, tools, pottery styles, and traditions continue in altered forms. The people of the Indus Valley did not disappear. They dispersed. They blended into new regional cultures. Their knowledge did not vanish. It changed shape. Certain elements of Indus life persisted for centuries. Town planning traditions continued in later settlements. Water management techniques were passed down. Craft traditions survived. Symbols and motifs reappeared in later South Asian art. Even aspects of belief systems may have endured. Respect for water, ritual bathing, nature-centered symbolism. These themes echo in later cultural and religious practices across the region. Because the Indus script remains undeciphered, much of their inner world is still hidden from us. We do not know what they called themselves. We do not know their myths, their songs, or their laws. But absence of text does not mean absence of meaning. What the archaeology reveals is a civilization that prioritized balance between humans and nature, between order and freedom, between individual life and communal responsibility. The Indus Valley Civilization stands apart in world history, not because it conquered others, not because it built monuments to power, but because it built systems that worked quietly for centuries. In a world where ancient history is often defined by war, kings and empires rising through violence, the Indus Valley offers a different model, a society where cooperation may have mattered more than domination, where cleanliness and planning were civic values, where daily life, not glory, was at the center. Its decline reminds us that even peaceful societies are vulnerable to forces beyond their control: climate, geography, time. Yet its legacy remains powerful. It challenges assumptions. It expands our understanding of what civilization can look like. It shows that complexity does not require brutality. Today, the Indus Valley Civilization continues to influence how historians, archaeologists, and scholars think about the ancient world. It challenges long-held assumptions about what makes a civilization powerful. Not force, not conquest, but organization, cooperation, and long-term stability. Modern excavations continue to uncover new details: advanced drainage systems, carefully measured bricks, neighborhoods designed for health and function. These discoveries reveal a society that valued planning and collective well-being. The Indus people understood that cities must work for everyone. Clean water was not a luxury. Sanitation was not reserved for elites. Even modest homes had access to drainage and wells. This level of urban equality was rare in the ancient world, and in many places it would not appear again for thousands of years. The lack of monumental palaces and glorified rulers suggests a different philosophy of leadership. Power may have been distributed. Authority may have been earned through service rather than force. This does not mean the Indus Valley was perfect or without hierarchy, but it suggests restraint. The civilization's long lifespan supports this idea. For nearly 700 years, it remained stable. Standards remained consistent. Cities were maintained. Culture endured without dramatic upheaval. This is remarkable. Its quiet ending also offers an important lesson. The Indus Valley did not resist change until it collapsed. It adapted. It decentralized. People followed resources rather than clinging to cities. In doing so, They preserved life and knowledge. This stands in contrast to many ancient empires that exhausted themselves. Through warfare or rigid control, the Indus response was flexible, practical, human-centered. Why does this matter today? Because modern societies face similar challenges: climate change, resource management, urban planning, population movement. The Indus Valley Civilization shows that adaptation does not require chaos. It can be calm. It can be organized. Despite its importance, the Indus Valley remains underrepresented in popular history, perhaps because it left no kings to celebrate, no battles to dramatize, no conquerors to mythologize. Its story is subtle, and subtle stories are often overlooked. Yet this civilization deserves attention. It reminds us that progress does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes, the most advanced societies are the quiet ones. The people of the Indus Valley lived without knowing how future generations would judge them. They did not carve their names in stone. They did not proclaim greatness. They simply built lives that worked. Their cities stood for centuries. Their systems sustained millions. Their values were embedded in brick, water, and order. Though their voices are silent, their legacy speaks in the streets they laid out, in the drains that still function today, in the idea that civilization can exist without constant conflict. The Indus Valley Civilization was not forgotten because it failed. It was forgotten because it did not shout. And now, as we slowly rediscover it, we are reminded that history is not only written by conquerors. Sometimes it is written by those who chose peace. This is the story of the Indus Valley Civilization: quiet, enduring, and deeply human.